Hello and welcome to SHRP Talk, the show by washed up athletes for washed up athletes looking to be their best self. On today's episode, Jaden and I had a good discussion, just starting off with talking about some updates from training in our own lives, me more from the weightlifting side and Jaden from the long distance running side. So cool to get into that and compare and contrast a little bit. And then we get into a deeper discussion on grit. Jaden recently read the book Grit by Angela Duckworth and had some great takeaways, some thoughts that he wanted to discuss and get into. And we just had a great conversation about a lot of the takeaways from that book. We get into the power of delayed gratification and why a lot of people burn out. We talk about having a passion and a purpose and not letting that get into obsession, but just finding out what motivates you, what's fun for you, what you enjoy and what you're passionate about, and then using that to propel you forward to accomplishing your goals or living out that purpose. And we tie faith into a lot of these things, having grit and persevering through when times are good, when times are bad, and everything in between. And so plenty of good takeaways, just a great discussion on consistency and purpose, drive, and grit. It's the name of the book, and just a fun conversation on our own takeaways, our own perspectives, and how we view grit and consistency overall. So hopefully a few things you can take away as well and think about, especially if you're struggling with finding your purpose or what you're passionate about, or if you're struggling to be committed to things. This can hopefully be a little perspective change for you and give you some practical things to implement into your daily life to figure out what you want to pursue and how you can get there, some practical steps you can take to reach that goal or live out that purpose. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you enjoy. Before we get rolling with today's episode, I want to take a second to tell you about SHRP Training. Snyder Health Recovery and Performance Training is an online training platform to help washed up athletes look, feel, and move better. We offer several different group options catered to your needs, interests, and goals, with new programs delivered each month through the TeamBuilder app. Features include video demonstrations, 24/7 messaging and feedback, and access to the SHRP Edge, a comprehensive guide to upgrade your diet, sleep, and life. Use the code PODCAST in all caps to get 50% off your first month when checking out a program. Iron sharpens iron, so let us help you become your sharpest self. Now let's go. So today was more of a higher volume strength day. The deadlift day was high intensity, just singles.
Trap bar?
So that was
barbell.
Barbell.
Do you still trap bar? Or do you have one?
Yeah, I mix that in every third phase. I kind of have set movements that I'll mix in every third rotation, if that makes sense. So bench press, front squat, deadlift, what else? Trap bar, barbell overhead press. So kind of see, well, one, they're just fun to do.
Right.
Because everything else I mix up. So fun to keep in the rotation consistently, but also like, are these other things I'm doing, can I still get stronger through them, even though I'm not bench pressing every week? When I come back to it, do I still got it? Or
right.
Whatever.
Like those are your benchmark lifts, like truly assess strength and then see if the accessory stuff is working.
Yeah. And it's funner because like if you bench press every single week year round, you're going to plateau at some point. Whereas if I reintroduce it every, we'll say 2 months for 4 weeks, starting point may not be as good as previous, but by week 4, made some pretty good progress. So
is your benchmark barbell or dumbbell or
barbell?
Barbell.
Yeah.
Do you have specific, like, this is what I want to hit for like percent, like body weight, like times body weight, or do you just go like as much as possible?
Nah,
Okay.
whatever we're feeling. It's all feel nowadays.
Right.
I'll use percentages kind of for Olympic stuff, but everything else is kind of feel.
Gotcha.
RPE, RAR type stuff.
Gotcha. I didn't know if you were like, because I think Ben Patrick, like the knees over toes guy, he'll do some benchmark stuff just to like make sure you're hitting a certain standard, and then basically have those across the board for lifts. And then if you aren't hitting a certain standard, then you focus on that. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Different people do it different ways,
Yeah.
for sure.
I see the value in it, especially for like coaching at the college level. Like I didn't ever have set benchmarks, but you can kind of tell, okay, he's strong enough. We don't need to work on this anymore. So let's just focus more on rate of force development and speed and those other things.
Right.
But no, not for me personally. It's just not that serious anymore. So it's
Okay.
more so kind of like a RPE 7 week 1, then 8, then 9, then 11 or 12
Right.
week 4. See what we can do. Take it to failure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never really get close to failure those other weeks unless I make an oopsie.
Right.
But I don't know,
I was
man.
interested this week. I don't know why it came to my head, but almost like benchmarks before you start a certain activity. So like benchmarks you'd have to hit before like starting to run, or like before increasing mileage. Like you have to hit this percent of your body weight and calf raises and this and like single leg stuff and just like a bunch of lists of different exercises and things you have to hit before you just like rush into running, because we know running is something that takes a lot of force over time and a repetitive nature. So I don't know, that kind of came into my head, and something I might explore, see what I find, see if there's any research on like this percent. If you do this weight and calf raises, like your calves are strong enough and durable enough to withstand the load over time, just to try to prevent some like Achilles tendonitis or any sort of tendonitis that results from running and doing stuff too quickly. But yeah, I don't know. Benchmarks are interesting to me. It's hard to set a standard and know if there's value without experimenting and doing it yourself. But it's
Yeah,
interesting.
like every person's different, so I don't think
Right.
there would be a perfect benchmark, but it's a fun way to kind of gamify it, and
Right.
you maybe have this long-term goal, but you have those periodic goals as well, and kind of earn the right to advance. So
We have all
I think
these return to sport protocols. So like you
yeah,
follow all of those return to sport, but like how about like getting into sport protocols? Like what should I be able to hit before I even get into this movement or sport or whatever it is? Because our MSK musculoskeletal professor always harps on like runners, like cross country runners, and how it's always the same time of year, come in for stress fractures and shin splints because they didn't run all off season and then just got harped into a bunch of miles week 1 and they just weren't ready for it. And so it's just inevitable at that rate. So I think it would be something I think like high school coaches could use if you have like a off season program or just something. But yeah, you never know with high school athletes if they're going to be willing to follow that in the off season, because it's high school. It's not that serious, but some will.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like say what you will about Ben Patrick and the ATG stuff. There's good things. There's stuff maybe we disagree with, but I think he does a nice job from what I've seen of kind of his progressions and benchmarks and standards, and like if you get proficient in one thing, here's the next progression, and it's just a fun. It's visible for clients or people on the program to visibly see that progress and kind of see themselves hitting those benchmarks. I think running's a good example for that too. So I think it's kind of dependent on the task, what you're training for. But yeah, if you ever I know you've talked about doing like the hybrid or running program, but if you ever dove into that more, I think that'd be a cool thing to mess around and see what that looks like and experiment with and get feedback on. Because
I think even Ben White just helped publish a book that was like exercise progressions and just like in general, like if this is hard for you, here's a step back. If it's easy, here's a step forward. Like just a bunch of different progressions. I haven't looked into like who the authors were, but I think there's definitely a space for it. I think people want to know how to take the right steps and not obviously get injured when they try something new. I feel like that's what the biggest problem is. People try to hop back in where they were before, and they've maybe taken a year or two off, and they just get hurt or are way too sore after the first session. And it's hard without help, but
yeah,
it's interesting.
you put in how many miles did you say you ran last week?
A little over 33.
33?
So building up, yeah. Getting there. The nicer weather is
40
making
soon?
it easier. Because I probably did upper 20s of those on a treadmill, and that's not very
Gross,
fun.
dude. Shout out to
that
you.
takes some mental fortitude to get on the treadmill and just go for 40 minutes, like in the Larchwood gym, staring at a wall. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm excited to see what I can get up to this summer. I feel like I'm finally getting to the point where I can build up and do it safely, and my body feels ready. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
What would you say is in like peak condition years of doing this? What would be the maximum output per week? We'll say mileage.
So just like naturally over time you get faster, and so your miles in a certain amount of time just increases naturally. So I think I'd like to stick with running 6 days a week. I think I do basically 3 base runs, 2 pretty high intensity, and 1 that's kind of a medium intensity, more of like a threshold, longer interval session. So right now, like those base runs are around 5 miles. The more intense runs are around 7 or 8, and then the medium one is more in like the 6s. So kind of around that 30-mile range. But ideally, like if I can get those, I would say longer intensity runs. I don't want to go over like if I get over 40 to 60 minutes, I'm going to have to do like intra workout nutrition to try and stay performing at that high of a level. And I don't really want to get into that right now because I'm trying to get fast. I'm not really trying to train for a marathon right now. So I think capping at like 40 to 50 minutes of work time, I think like ideally those longer sessions would be 8 to 9, the medium one 7 to 8, and then the base runs like 6. So that would be like 6 times 3, 18, 25, and then 8 and 8. So like that's like 41. But like as you naturally get faster, like you're gonna get more miles in, more time on the feet. So yeah, it'll just naturally go up. You kind of control it that way. But yeah, there's always like the hidden miles of just like walking back from class and cross training and stuff like that. Like ideally I'd love to get 5 to 10 hours of training per week. So whatever that looks like, whatever that amounts to. Right now I'm probably like 5 hours of running, probably like 2 of lifting, and then fill in the rest with some lower intensity stuff. But I love my mobility work.
Got to get it in.
Got to.
3 hours a day, baby.
Not quite.
At least.
I'm getting the massage gun in before the run and doing some slant board work. But body feels good.
Sleeping in a different stretched position every night. Little quad Nordic on the back. Just fall asleep.
Oh, no, not that extreme. Not that extreme.
Good stuff.
That's funny.
What you been reading? What you been learning, man? I know you were reading a lot when you were home.
Yeah, it's nice to finally be able to read for fun and not be bogged down by PT school stuff. So yeah, just trying to keep the mind fresh, keep the mind rolling, because it's always hard when you get a week off and then do nothing with your brain and then get back into stuff. It's hard to get the mind back working again. So yeah, I read a lot over break, and one of the books, I mentioned this to you, Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Great.
Yeah, I took a lot from it. Thought it was really good. Took some notes on it. I've been doing that lately, just taking notes as I read, so I don't have to reread. It's similar to like what highlighting would be, except I'm getting these books from libraries, so I can't really keep them. So just been taking some notes, and thought it'd be beneficial to maybe summarize some of those notes and see what you have to think about them. And yeah, just talk about grit and all that it entails. But yeah, want to get into that.
Yeah, what's the author's background here?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't really. I know she's worked with like professional teams. So she's a professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. She has advised the White House, the World Bank, NBA, and NFL teams, and Fortune 500 CEOs. She completed her bachelor's in neurobiology at Harvard, neuroscience at Oxford, and PhD of psychology at Pennsylvania. So I think she knows what she's talking about when she is talking about grit and psychology. So yeah, I think I found a lot of insight, especially in the first half of the book. I thought it was really good. So yeah,
Let's get into it.
let's do
What
it.
you learn, man?
So I'll start with an intro, and a lot of these are written down. So forgive me if I look like I'm just reading off a page, because I am. So grit is the combination of passion and perseverance for long-term goals. It's about maintaining consistent effort towards something meaningful, even when the journey gets tough and progress feels slow. Grit isn't just the will to keep going, it's a deep, enduring passion for what you're working toward. It's the ability to stick with a goal over a long period, even when faced with setbacks, challenges, or failures. Grit is essential for achieving success in any field because it fuels the persistence needed to push through obstacles and stay on track. At its core, grit involves the ability to delay gratification, understanding that immediate rewards are often fleeting, while lasting success comes from sacrifices and staying focused on the bigger picture. Gritty individuals know that achieving something means taking time and effort, and they remain committed to their ultimate goal no matter how difficult the road may be. So that's kind of like the intro and definition. And then there was a quote from Will Smith that I thought was really cool.
The actor?
Yeah, the actor, that
Shout
Hitch guy.
out.
He said, "The only thing that I see that is distinctly different about me is I'm not afraid to die on a treadmill. I will not be outworked, period. You might have more talent than me. You might be smarter than me. You might be sexier than me. But if we get on the treadmill together, there's two things. You're getting off first, or I'm going to die." So I think that quote just kind of resonated. Like, a lot of doing hard things is psychological, right? It's what we're willing to put our mind and body to the test. And like that quote, I just feel like embodies the essence of grit, right? It's not the most talented or naturally gifted. It's just refusing to quit no matter how long or difficult the road is. It's showing up every day, putting in the work. And yeah, it's just success isn't just about talent. It's about effort. She harps on effort being basically twice as valuable as talent. And the people who achieve greatness aren't necessarily the ones who start with the most talent, but the ones who refuse to stop. So, yeah. What are your thoughts? Any thoughts on that intro?
I love it. I talk about like consistency a lot. I think that ties into it. I love delayed gratification because a lot of it's not a competition, but a lot of people aren't willing to see things through like that, especially today when we have social media, Uber Eats, Amazon, a lot of things you want, snap of the fingers, you can get it pretty quickly. But there's also a lot of things that take months, years, decades of building toward, whether that's a business goal, body composition, social media growth. Like there's things that come from, like you said, not how talented you are, which is still obviously a factor, but it's more so that Will Smith thing, like, I'm gonna keep going, like I'm not gonna stop regardless of what happens along the way. And I think, I mean, we talked about earlier in the year, like podcasts failing, like 99% of them failing after or before 10 episodes because people don't see that immediate boom and then they just fall off. But part of it's just trusting that it's going to come through time and patience and reps. But also, people are in love with the result and not the process. Whereas, like for us getting to do this weekly, it's very fun to do. And sure, I want it to grow. It would be cool if it continued growing, but more than anything, it's a chance to connect and learn on a weekly basis. And so I think whatever you're pursuing, you don't have to love everything about it. You just have to love a lot of aspects of it. Like for me, exercise, doing this, business, social media, whatever it is, like there's got to be aspects you love. And even getting back into like gamifying stuff, there's got to be ways to gamify it so that you can stay consistent with it, especially if you don't love it as much. But I think for anything, I'm a big, you know who Hormozy is, Alex Hormozy,
Right.
big business guy.
Yep.
His thing for seeing results is more, better, and then finding something else basically. And that, I could be butchering that. But the first thing is more. You have to do more of it, not only just because the thing we talk about consistency, doing over time, but naturally as a result of doing things over and over and over again, you're going to get better. It's going to be really hard to not get better. And so that's the first piece. It has to be more and being consistent and being willing to do it for longer than anyone else. So that's my initial takeaways. I don't know if there's anything off that you want to branch off into or your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get a lot into like passion and stuff later on, but I resonate a lot with what you said. I'm curious who kind of exemplifies grit for you. Like for me, I got my Lion shirt on because when they were on Hard Knocks, I really resonated with Dan Campbell. I feel like he's had a really good culture shift in that Detroit facility, and I think he introduced grit as like their foundational principle. And they're just like an organization that exemplifies like that type of mentality, I feel like. And that's a big reason why I like watching them. I feel like they show that on the field. I feel like their players show that. And I feel like his coaching style shows that. I'm curious who maybe exemplifies grit. I know you mentioned Hormozy there, but maybe other teams or individuals that exemplified for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of athletes you could go into. I mean, there's a whole list, so I mean, won't go down that road. But yeah, as I've gotten more into, it's been fun to learn more about the business side of things after not really ever getting into that. Even like college, dabbled a little bit with like entrepreneurship stuff, but it's been fun to learn more about like startups and business growth and success stories from that. And so there's plenty of examples for that. Like Hormozy's a great one. He's obviously successful now, but he had years of losing money and not know what he was doing. And I think that's for any entrepreneur or businessman. A lot of the very top ones, whether it's, Elon Musk or Gary Vee or Bezos, whoever it is, we see the success now, but we don't see the early years, the struggle, doing multiple things by yourself. So there's plenty of examples in the business world, and it's been fun to hear those stories. And I think that, applies to other areas of life. Trying to think outside of that. Do you have any other examples outside of sports, like anyone you know personally or?
Outside of sports, not entirely. I think bringing up those examples are huge. Like how many of those people started out of their garage, or like they always have these stories of starting with nothing and just continuing to work. And yeah, people always want to point at them after they've made it and be like, wow, like that's amazing. Like they made it, but nobody wants to point at the journey that they had to go through. Like I think that she talks about this in the book. Like you watch an Olympic swimmer and you're like, wow, they're so talented, they're so gifted, but um, you don't know how many hours they've put in their whole life and dedicated to that craft, and you don't know what it all took to get there. So I think it's valuable to see the insight of what people who have made it and gone through that journey, what that looks like and what it took.
Yeah, everyone's who there, obviously, like we said, there's some skill involved, but they all have one thing in common, and it's that they didn't give up. They stuck with it through the good times and bad. So I think that's a great start for grit, just being consistent and delayed gratification, just keeping your mind on the end result, but enjoying the process as well.
Awesome. And then we'll move into, she has 4 different components of grit. There's interest, practice, purpose, and hope. The first one's interest, and this is kind of talking on the passion that you brought up. Interest is the spark that ignites our passion. It's what draws us to a goal in the first place. Without genuine interest in what we are pursuing, it becomes nearly impossible to maintain the sustained effort required to see it through. When we are truly interested in something, the effort feels like less like a burden and more like an exciting challenge. Interest helps us stick with a goal over time because it taps into our intrinsic motivation. In scientific terms, interest triggers the release of dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, which makes the journey enjoyable and keeps us engaged. Research also shows that people who find joy in their work are more likely to excel because they are willing to invest time and energy into it. Simply put, passion for the pursuit gives us the energy and drive to persist. And I think there's a good distinction between passion and obsession, right? So passion is authentic. It's what fuels us with energy and joy, and it's sustained by genuine interest and enjoyment. It's about the journey, not just the destination, kind of like you said. Passion keeps us engaged and motivated in a healthy, balanced way. Obsession is driven by external pressure. It becomes all-consuming and draining, often losing perspective along the way. Eventually, obsession leads to burnout, damaged relationships, and poor health. While passion enhances our lives, obsession can ultimately take away from them. So I think it's cool that there's a distinction, and it takes self-reflection to know when something has gone from passion to obsession, because obviously there's not a black and white line between those two. But yeah, what are your thoughts on passion and interest in that section?
Yeah, I think with passion, is kind of what I hit on earlier. For anything, there's going to be parts you don't like, especially, if it's a long journey to whatever you're shooting for. But if you truly love it and are passionate about it, then it makes it, your happiness and your joy from it isn't driven by the results, but like the continual pursuit of it. So like exercise, or even for me, just like sharing on exercise and health, like with the SHRP stuff, whether that's podcast or social media, I don't think I'll ever get burnt out from it, just because they're topics I love talking about, whether it's exercise, well-being, faith. There's just, even if you get repetitive with it, it's there's just passion there for it. And so even if there's not great immediate results that come from that, if you truly love it, there might be days where it's not as fun, but I think overall there's joy that comes from just continuing to do it over time. And yeah, getting into obsession, I think of like a Christian aspect, making something an idol, which can come from bad things, but it can come from good things as well. Like exercise can be an idol, food can be an idol, other people can be an idol. And so I think it's important to find balance and not having your self-worth tied into those things, whatever it is. I think it's important to find that balance. And from the Christian side, like knowing what your worth truly is in. It's not these material things or things we enjoy, things of this world. I think it comes from only one source, and that's God. And so I think from the Christian aspect, that's where that's where my mind goes, and just trying to find that balance and just remembering what and who you truly serve.
Yeah, I think to help distinguish what is passion versus obsession, I think you have to take the material stuff out of it, right? You take away the money, you take away the fame. What are you going to do tomorrow? Like what do you love to do regardless of all of that? Like for me, when I was at South Dakota State playing football, like that was an obsession. Like I was trying to get to the NFL or whatever that took me. Like that, I felt a love for football pretty quickly during my time there. But then you look more towards Northwestern, and I'm just playing to have fun. I'm playing with the guys that I love around me, and it was a completely different experience. So I think you just have to take a step back and be like, if it weren't for the money, like what would I want to do with my life? Like what makes an impact, what serves others, like what has meaning to me, and what do I want to pursue, right? Like take the money away, I'm still going to be a PT. I'm going to serve others. I'm going to do the things that I love because I feel like I have a gift and I have a light to show and help others heal and be their full potential, right? Like I'm gonna do that regardless if you pay me $1 or 100,000, right? Like that's what I want to do. That's where I want to be. And so I think it's important to reflect on what you truly want to do. And right, like it's hard in this world because there's things like video games, there's things like social media that you can be passionate about and you think you can try and make it. And I'm not here to say that you can't, but there are like realistic expectations that we have to provide in this world, and the likelihood that you're going to make it as a gamer may not be that high. But I think it's something that you truly want to make a difference in the world and serve others and has meaning and does have a future for you. So I think it's important to take a step back, whether that's through journaling or whether that's just reflection, just to get to that end goal. Because I mean, you ask half of my PT class right now, and they don't know what they want to get into. They don't know what style of physical therapy, where, and it's hard. It takes reflection, and yeah,
Yeah. I think for whatever that passion is too, like you talked about yours, I talked about mine. I think it's important I think we're called to share it, whatever that is. So whether that's through a job or talking about it or whatever that looks like, I think, again, because I don't want to say the word obsessed since you talked about it, but just because you love it more than the average person, and through that, I mean, maybe more educated about it than other people just through time, and you talk about it for hours. I think it's important to share that. I think those passions or gifts were given to you for a reason, and so I think it's a shame to keep that to yourself. So whether that is exercise or PT or finance or nutrition or business, whatever that is, whatever that kind of one thing is for you or those couple things are, I think it's just finding a way to share that and use it not just in a selfish way, but in a way that benefits and helps other people as well. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this. I think our hearts are in the right place. We love it. These things we do for selfish reasons, but also just getting to share it with other people and either help them fall in love with it, or maybe they're passionate about the same things, and then you kind of grow a community through that. And then that's kind of the iron sharpens iron thing. And so I think that's what's about whatever that one thing is for you. Maybe it is video games, like just leaning into it and not keeping it to yourself.
yeah. Next component is practice. Practice is where grit gets tested. Interest may get us started, but practice is where we develop skill and resilience. It's not just talent that matters, it's the deliberate practice of a skill over time that leads to mastery. This involves putting in consistent, focused effort, often outside of your comfort zone, to push through weaknesses and limitations. The role of practice and grit cannot be overstated. Through it, we build the mental toughness and perseverance needed to keep going, even when the rewards feel distant. And she kind of goes into deliberate practice, right? Deliberate practice is the key to turning natural skill or natural talent into lasting skill. It's not just about spending hours doing something, it's about doing it with focus, with a specific intent to improve. A major insight here is that deliberate practice demands pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, focusing on weaknesses, and getting constant feedback. The best aren't the ones who just put in the time, they're the ones who actively engage in the practice with the goal of continuous improvement. What makes deliberate practice different from just practicing is the effort and intention you bring to each session. It's about attacking your limitations with the mindset that every failure or setback is simply an opportunity to grow and improve. Research backs this up, showing that the most successful individuals aren't necessarily the ones with the most talent. They're the ones who have invested the most time into focused, intentional practice that pushes them to refine their skills. The beauty of deliberate practice is that it builds grit over time. As we engage in the process, we not only improve at the task itself, but also strengthen the mental endurance required to stay consistent. Just like muscles grow stronger through resistance training, your brain adapts and forms new neural connections as you practice, making it easier to push through the challenges in the future. This kind of practice is inherently tied to the development of grit because it requires effort, patience, and willingness to confront discomfort. It's not about achieving perfection, but rather about steadily improving one step at a time. Over time, deliberate practice becomes less about effortful striving and more about a habit that supports long-term progress. It's the building block for turning passion into mastery and mastery into success. Sorry if that was long, but I thought that was important. You got to do what you say you're going to do, and you got to be specific with it, right? If you want to run a marathon, you better start running. Like you have to put in the intentional work. And I think this is an area where I wasn't great in high school, right? I loved to lift. I didn't love to maybe shoot as many basketballs as I wanted to or needed to. And that just doesn't translate, right? We know to get better at the thing, you have to do the specific thing, and it has to be intentional. And she kind of goes into like the spelling bee, like those kids that spend hours and hours of time studying the dictionary and words, and it always came down to like how much intentional deliberate practice they put in, like who would do the best. And it takes a lot out of you, like to put that much focus in without the distractions, especially social media and everything that can be a distraction in these days. Like how willing are you to put intentional, like 100% focus, and just grind? Like your CNS is going to be taxed when you're done. You're just grinding. And I think it's hard. We don't really see it after we're done playing sport or after we're not studying for a test overnight. But to get better at a skill and to want to be the best, you have to really put in the time and effort into that intentional, specific skill.
For that one, my mind went immediately to golf and trying to work on my golf swing. Like, just from kind of teaching ourselves growing up, and for, I don't know, whatever reasons, just had some swing flaws that never really noticed because I never really videoed my swing, but kind of explained a lot of errors and mishits I had growing up, and then through college, and especially as a GA, being able to work with the golf team and then have that space in that golf room there to kind of use at my disposal. Just kind of, especially during the winters, started grinding more on fixing the mechanics of my swing, which, like, I spent so many hours, so many videos of trying to get that fixed, and like without much success. Like, I kind of fixed one thing and then something else would get off, and it's crazy. It made me appreciate like how good pros are and how complex a golf swing truly is. Like, it looks so simple, and until you step over the ball or get yourself in video, and you can kind of see where one or two little things wrong can create all sorts of flaws. And it's a sport without much room for error. Like, you think of a 150-yard shot, like 1 degree off, you take that out over that distance, like that's missing the green. And so that was something I spent a lot of time and hours on without seeing really any gratification. Like, because as you're doing that, as you're changing things, there'll be occasionally something that, like one or two things that'll click, and then you start hitting it better. But a lot of it, it's going to get worse first. I think that's true for anything. It's not going to be good right away, especially when you're making changes. But just kind of remembering why you're doing it and having that end goal in mind, and being more like process oriented, process driven rather than results driven. And yeah, that was something I just grinded through, and didn't get a lot of results from. And but I think just with sticking with it and experimenting and changing some things, like I think it was last summer, kind of finally found a swing and a few thoughts that fit better for me. And for me, a lot of errors were more like heel shots, and now it's more maybe a little toey than anything. But that switch kind of finally flipped, and so I think that came through just years and years of experimenting and trying to figure that out, which was not fun. But I'm still not a scratch golfer by any means, but I can just go out and have more fun and not even think about the swing anymore, which is the best thing. And it's fun that it's a sport for life and I can continue to grow that. But I wouldn't be at that point without the years and the failures, the failed swing thoughts, I tried the Cam Young, the pause at the top. I tried the Tony Finau, whatever you want to call it. Like I tried everything, man, and through that, I think you learn what to do and what not to do. So that's the first place my mind went, but you can apply that to a lot of things.
And that's where kind of passion and practice go hand in hand, right? You're not going to be willing to put in all those hours and failed attempts into something that you're not passionate about. And you and me are both like grew up on golf, love golf, and want to be the best we can be. And unfortunately, PT school has been terrible for my golf game, but I've kind of put that on the back burner, both because I don't have the finances and the time to put into golf at this time. But I see myself in the future getting back into it and grinding. So, yeah, it's something that it looks easy. Like you look at Ludwig's swing, it's so simple. It's just up, down, and he makes it look so easy. But then you get on your own swing and there's a million swing thoughts and a lot can go wrong. So it's hard when we grew up on a course without a range, couldn't really put swing thoughts to the test, just go out and play and figure it out. But
it's a humbling sport, man.
Right. Next we'll kind of get into purpose. So purpose is the third component. Purpose is the anchor that keeps us grounded when the path becomes difficult or unclear. It's the deeper why behind our goals, the reason we keep going even when the work feels overwhelming. Individuals with a sense of purpose often experience greater fulfillment because they see their efforts as part of something larger than themselves. When we connect our daily work to a broader purpose, it gives us the strength to push through challenges. Research in psychology supports this by showing that people who feel their work is meaningful are more resilient and motivated over the long term. Purpose helps us navigate through the inevitable frustrations and setbacks by reminding us of the greater impact we hope to achieve. And this is kind of what you were talking to, like, what is your why? What is your purpose? What do you feel is the most meaningful thing you can do in your life and serve others? And some other things, like it acts as a compass, right? It helps cut through distractions, that short-term gratification, and makes it easier to stay on course, right? If our long-term vision is something that motivates us and something we truly want, we're able to say no to those short-term gratifications. But yeah, it takes patience and persistence. It's a powerful motivator, but you're not going to want to do it every day. That consistency can be tough, but it's about building habits and systems, right? If you make it hard to do every single day, you're going to have days where you don't do it. But if you build it into habits and systems that you're not thinking about, doing the hard things is easy over time, right? There's a nice quote: "A goal without a plan is just a wish," right? Like I'm pretty type A. I like to plan things. I like things structured, and I like habits. I know you do too. So I think just going with the flow is something that's hard for me. I think if I truly want to achieve something, I almost have to know an end goal, know a date in the future when I want to do this by, and backtrack and have things just super structured so I know I'm on pace to get to that goal. So it can be hard to know time-wise when you think you can achieve that goal. It can be hard to know what setbacks will be in your way, when a sickness might come, when just distractions come in the way, and you have to be willing to be compliant with changing those things. But yeah, I think a long-term vision is super important. And I know I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, my mind goes kind of to like external versus internal motivation. I think of like for athletes, there's been all sorts of anecdotes about athletes finally winning that championship that they've been training their whole life for. And then the next day is like the worst day of their lives because they don't know what else to pursue at that point. And so I think if your purpose, your motivation is in external things rather than internal and a deeper purpose, then it's going to be fleeting. Sure, like a championship can still take decades, years to get there, and so that can keep you going during that time. But it's still only a season of life, and there's a lot of former athletes who are depressed or lose that purpose once that's done because they don't know what else to chase and they can't apply that to other things. And so I think it's just having a deeper purpose, and my mind goes back to the faith aspect again, just knowing what your purpose truly is in, not anything external, but having that, like living out your calling. I think just honoring God with what you do and say, or it doesn't even have to be faith related, but I mean, exercise and just having that internal drive to just be your best self throughout life, or like how you eat, just trying to treat your body as a temple. And it's just a purpose that's not one specific thing. It goes back to the process, and it's a continual day in, day out thing because you're fueled by those internal things and that love and passion for it rather than something external. So that's kind of where my mind goes. I had something else, but I am struggling to remember. What was the second half? Was there something a little different in there?
Kind of like planning,
Oh, yeah.
structured.
Yeah, I think I'm the same way, but like the faith aspect has allowed me to kind of surrender the planning a little bit. And so, sure, I love routine. I love planning some things, but also just being free to surrender to the timeline that God may have or the plans that he may have. I think of, back when I was coaching and going through a bunch of interviews to try and get the next job, they'd ask like 5 to 10 years, where do you see yourself? And I'd say something like, director of Power 5 SEC program, tell them what they want to hear. But as I kept doing that, I just realized I didn't truly know, and that's okay because I didn't have an external goal anymore. It wasn't anymore about chasing the logo or reaching a certain position, because same idea. I knew that if I got that position I finally wanted, I'd be very happy for, maybe that first day. And then the next day it's like, oh, okay, what now? So I think, just it's good to have routine. It's good to plan, but also not being set on those things and gearing your whole life towards that and kind of a make or break thing. Just being free to just kind of see where life goes, and just having that deeper purpose, I think, kind of frees you up to that.
I like it. Finally, hope. Hope is what enables us to believe the possibility of success. Even after failure, it's the belief that our efforts will eventually pay off. Even if we can't yet see the results, even if we can't see the results, hope isn't just wishful thinking. It's a critical component of grit because it fuels persistence. Hope involves maintaining the belief that setbacks are temporary and that success is still possible if we keep working. Studies show that hopeful individuals are more likely to bounce back from adversity because they have a mindset that failure is not the end, but a learning opportunity. Hope is about seeing failure as a stepping stone to success and having the emotional resilience to stay committed to the process. It kind of speaks for itself, but like, you got to have hope in what you're doing. You got to believe in yourself. And if you give up on the first sign of failure, like, you're not going to make it that far. I love the quote, if people aren't laughing at your dreams, then your dreams aren't big enough, right? So you got to be the biggest believer in yourself. Like, people aren't going to do it for you. They're not going to have the hope in the future that you want, right? Hope fuels ambition. The biggest achievements in history were once considered impossible until someone refused to believe otherwise. If your goals don't scare you, they probably aren't pushing you hard enough, right? It's like the 4-minute mile thing. Like, nobody ran faster than the 4-minute mile, and the second that somebody did, there was a bunch of people that did. Like, we don't believe that things are possible until we see somebody else do it, and it just takes that one individual to put in the work, take that next step, and do what they think that they're able to, right? It's just belief in yourself.
Yeah, my mind goes a couple places. I think what you said, like, we have to be a little crazy, a little delusional. I think that's what successful people have. They were delusional starting out about what they could achieve, and maybe other people doubting that or not believing it's possible. But I think that's kind of what keeps you going. You have to have a little bit of delusion to keep you going through it. Otherwise, it's hard to start at all on that mission if you don't think you can do it in the first place. I think of also just positivity. I feel like I'm a pretty positive person just because I hate negativity, dog. I hate talking about or just like voicing things that, whether it's a negative aspect of the day or talking about other people or what you're frustrated with. I think that just takes your mind to a dark place when it's always negativity. I think you just gotta. I think this is a John Gordon thing, but feed the positive wolf rather than the negative one. And like mental health, obviously, a lot of different factors, but I think that big piece of that is just from people thinking negatively all the time. So just having more positivity, whether that's about accomplishing a goal, but also just the day in, day out, not looking at the negative things, but just practicing more gratitude, being grateful for whether it's a job or exercise, all these different things. It's not a have to, it's a get to. I think having that perspective, I think, helps a lot because a lot of us are very blessed and very fortunate compared to a lot of other people and a lot of other eras of time. So, yeah, I think we always have a grass is greener mindset or what's next mindset, but just having positivity in what we currently have and currently get to do and not have to do. I think that perspective shift is a big deal. So just practicing positivity, whatever that looks like, practicing gratitude, praying about it, journaling about it, whatever you're grateful for, focusing on those things instead of the negative, not focusing on what could go wrong or what I don't like, but what could go right if I stay committed to this and have a good outlook. So kind of where my mind goes.
And it's contagious, right? Negative energy is contagious. Positive energy is contagious, right? It's who you surround yourself with. If you have gritty people striving for a bunch of things that people might think are crazy, like, you're probably more likely to do the same. But if you're around a bunch of negative Nellies and Debbie Downers and they're just saying, why me? I think there's definitely a contagious nature to that. So I think it's important who you surround yourself with, and even just your own thoughts, right? It can be contagious to yourself. Like, you consistently have a negative outlook, you're just going to keep going down. Like, momentum's a real thing with a lot of different things. I feel like the more you think positively, you get in the habit of that, and it's just something that becomes a habit. And I think you can go down and spiral down the other way, and it just gets harder and harder to get out of that hole. But yeah, it's crazy how contagious that can be, and you don't really realize like how impactful positive energy is until you've been around someone that really just gives you that type of energy, right? Like, Dan Jackson, SDSU new head football coach, is one of those guys, like just pours into you and gives you so much energy, and you leave the conversation like feeling like he made an impact and like you have more energy after you left, right? Like those are the people you want to stick around, and that's the type of energy you want to foster onto other people. So I think it's just really cool when you come across it, and you obviously can see it the other way around. Like you don't want to be around those people because they just kind of like drain you. Like it's almost upsetting, but it's hard.
For
It's
sure.
interesting.
I think too about the dreaming big. I think just to keep bringing back the faith piece into it, I think we think too short sometimes when we serve a God who can do the impossible. So I think we set a limit on that sometimes in our prayers and ambitions. I think we think too small of what we can do, but also what he can do through us. So I think there's power that comes in thinking big and praying big and asking for crazy things or believing those crazy things can happen because they can. I've seen it in my own life and the lives of other people. And there's all those powerful testimonies. And I think it's just having an unwavering belief that seemingly impossible things can happen. So I think there's a lot of hope that comes from just having faith. So just dreaming big and having your hope come through that.
Yeah. She mentioned a tool in the book that I thought was pretty interesting. I haven't necessarily put it into my own goals yet, but it's called the goal hierarchy. The concept is it's a powerful framework for staying focused on what truly matters. It's the idea that our goals are structured like a pyramid. At the very top, we have our ultimate long-term goal, the thing that defines our deepest sense of purpose. Below that are mid-level goals, the stepping stones that help us get there. And at the bottom, we have smaller everyday tasks that support those mid-level goals. The key takeaway here is not that all goals are created equal. Gritty people don't just set goals, they organize them so that every action they take is in service of their highest goal. What makes this approach so effective is that it prevents us from getting lost in distractions or chasing conflicting priorities. If a lower level goal no longer serves the higher purpose, it's okay to adjust or abandon it because the top goal stays the same. This structure helps with perseverance too, because setbacks at lower levels don't feel like failures. They're just part of the adjustment process on the way to something bigger. Grit isn't about blindly pushing forward on everything. It's about knowing which goals truly matter and aligning all of your efforts to support them. When you have clarity in your pyramid, you're not just working hard, you're working hard in the right direction. And there's an example with Warren Buffett that I thought was pretty cool. Warren Buffett has a famous strategy for prioritizing goals that ties directly into the concept. He tells the story of writing down 25 goals, things you want to accomplish in your life or career. Then you circle the top 5 that are most important to you. The key insight isn't just about choosing your priorities, it's about what you do with the other 20. Buffett says that you don't just put them on the back burner, you actively avoid them. Why? Because they are distractions. They might seem important, but they dilute your energy and pull you away from the goals that truly matter. This is exactly how goal pyramids work. Your top level goal, the thing that gives your life direction, is what you focus on. Everything else, including smaller goals, should serve that higher purpose. If a lower level goal no longer supports your ultimate goal, it's not worth your time. Grit isn't just about working hard, it's about working hard on the right things. It's about saying no to what doesn't serve your purpose so that all your energy and effort are pushing you toward your highest aspirations. The greatest people aren't just persistent, they're selective in what they persist in. So I think that's just like that was like profound to me. Just like finding a couple things, whether that's 3 or 4 or 5 things that you in the long term want to accomplish and have that be what you set your standard, whether that's like in faith, whether that's being a father, whether that's whatever it might be, a PT, like those are your top goals, and everything below is what fits for those, right? And we just cut out other things that might just take away at those times. I think that concept was profound to me, and I feel like I'm going to instill some of those strategies into things that I want to accomplish because I feel like there's a lot of distractions out there, right? And the less specific we are with our time, those things can kind of take away from what we want to be. And we only get one life, right? And we want to make a difference and be the best that we can be given our gifts and abilities. And I think doing that just takes away those distractions, whether that's, I don't know, social media or whatever that may be. But curious what your insights are.
Yeah, I think you hit it on in there. In that description, it's the power of saying no, which is tough. It's tough for me personally. I've been a yes man at times in my life, and I'm still a yes man still at times. But I think it's having the courage to say no to things that are pulling you away from what those goals or those purposes are for you, because there is a lot of distractions. Social media, like you said, can be a big one, but it can be, it can be people or jobs or these other idols that we have. They can be things that can pull you away from what your purpose really is. And back to like a business example, like a lot of people, when they have like a business that's failing or even succeeding, they'll go on and try something else in a completely different sector and keep trying that, and have 10 different businesses to focus on that never kind of get to where they want, rather than just focusing on that one thing and just getting that to as good as it can be. And so cutting out those other distractions. And yeah, I like that example with Buffett and finding those few things that are what you're reaching for, what your purpose is. And then I think you need to now look at your calendar, your schedule, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, like everything, and see, is this bringing me closer to that, or is this bringing me further away? And I think there's a time for a distraction or a break. So whether that's a hobby or maybe it is social media every once in a while, having that break, or even just like quiet time, I think that's underrated as well. Like we're always productivity is good, but not if we're just go 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 all throughout the day. So I think there's also a time to get away and not always be chasing that goal, but at the same time, I think we need to look closely at how we're spending our day. We can be blind to a lot of those things. Like even for me, I'll still look at my screen time and be like, "Oh my gosh, like no wonder I didn't get as much done as I wanted to." And so there's a lot of distractions. So just learning to say no, whether that's going out to your phone, to whatever it is, just having the courage to do that. It's not easy. I hate saying no, but I feel like it's also brings me closer to what I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to achieve. So just having discernment and figuring out what you need to say no to. I think that's easier said than done, but it's important for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can do basically anything you set your mind to, but you can't do everything, right? Like you have to be specific and narrow in what you want to achieve. And there's a difference between busyness and productivity, right? People love to say they're super busy, but how busy are they doing? Or are they actually doing the things that they want to do and be in the future? And those can be super general, right? Like it can be, I want to be the best PT I can be. Like that can be one of my top goals, and everything below that kind of feeds into that, or whether that's running, or whether that's social, like relationships, or whether that's faith. Like everything just kind of pours into that, and it fluctuates as you go. And yeah, you can be as strict or as lenient as you want, but it's all just upward from there. But yeah, I like that. So the science behind grit. Grit is the combination of passion, perseverance, and emotional control, all driven by the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that helps us set goals, make plans, and manage impulses. Grit involves resisting short-term adaptations to focus on long-term goals, and as we practice it, our brain becomes better at staying focused and motivated. This process is linked to neuroplasticity, which means our brain adapts and grows stronger with consistent effort, much like how muscles get stronger with exercise. A growth mindset is key to building grit. When we believe that effort leads to improvement, our brain works harder to help us learn and grow, even after failure. Grit is also tied to the brain's reward system. When we make progress, our brain releases dopamine, a feel-good chemical that keeps us motivated. As we persist, we strengthen our ability to resist distractions and stay focused on long-term goals. Emotional regulation is another important part of grit. People who manage their emotions well can handle stress and setbacks better, which helps them stay on track. The good news is that grit is not something we're born with. It's a skill we can build. Through deliberate practice, we improve our ability to stay focused, recover from setbacks, and push through challenges. Over time, our brain adapts to help us manage stress and prioritize long-term rewards so we can stay committed to our goals. And yeah, kind of on that neuroplasticity portion, regularly confronting difficult tasks can lead to structural changes in the brain, strengthening areas responsible for perseverance and emotional control. This adaptation suggests that taking on hard challenges can improve our ability to handle future hardships. So it's kind of like training a muscle. Like the more you work doing hard things and the more you get exposed to overcoming obstacles, the better it becomes at doing that. And the more you seek that. So I think that's pretty interesting. I think the more we view our brain as a muscle, the more we are willing to train those areas. And I think the same can be said on the other side. The less we train and the less hard things we expose ourselves to, the less willing we are to consistently keep doing those things, and the more we'll fall into the laziness, the processed food, the junk that is not really serving us.
Yeah. My brain went, when you said dopamine, I thought of like earned dopamine versus dopamine without any effort. So social media, sugary food, drugs, whatever it is. Like there's all sorts of quick hits of dopamine, and we talked a little bit about that last week. But I think it's more beneficial to get dopamine through effort, through earning it. Exercise, obviously, a great one. It's effort and strain that ultimately leads you feeling good and feeling just treating that reward system for doing hard things. And I think that can apply to other hard things as well. I think it's a good feeling when you work hard during the day and you can go to sleep at night knowing that you gave a lot of effort and got done what you wanted to get done, rather than getting that dopamine from those quick hits. So I think it's always better to get it through effort, and that's going to come through doing hard things and maybe not fun things in the moment, but it does trigger that reward signal. And so earning that reward signal versus quick triggers, whatever that is.
Yeah, dopamine is most effective at motivating us when we experience a gradual increase in reward as opposed to a large sudden reward, kind of what you talked on. Like it's going to be better at motivating you and truly going to do what it's supposed to when you earn that reward, when it's gradual over time, right? If it's social media, if it's scrolling, like that's not going to serve you, and it's not going to help with motivation and all of those things that are essential to do the things you want to do. Yeah. All right. I have 7 tips that it might overlap a little into what we've already talked about, but
Hit me.
first one is set a long-term vision and stay connected to your why. The actionable step here is reflect on deeper reasons why you're pursuing your goals, write down your why and revisit it regularly to keep your motivation strong. Having a clear vision of your future will help you stay on track during tough moments. And yeah, when the going gets tough, your why will serve as a source of strength. Having a long-term vision helps you stay connected to your goals, even when the progress feels slower when you encounter roadblocks. It gives you patience and motivation to keep going, even when short-term rewards are absent. So we talked a lot about long-term visions and purpose, but truly taking the time to write down that why and not just like assume you know what your purpose and your why is, but putting down a statement. Maybe that's people have put it like on their mirrors or something that they see every single day, right? Whether that's a wallpaper on your phone, something that you see every day, and you can use it to help you motivate you through, whether that's saying no to something you think might not serve you or whatever that might be. But it's important to know what your why truly is. 2 is develop a habit of persistence, even when the motivation is low. So establish a routine where you show up every day, even if you don't feel like it. Commit to performing small tasks that are aligned with your long-term goal. For instance, if you want to write a book, set a goal to write 500 words a day, no matter what. And as far as how, you can create a specific time and place to work on your goal. For example, you might dedicate the first hour of your morning to practice a new skill, write, or work out. Keep the commitment small at first to ensure you stay consistent, then build on habit as it becomes easier. And yeah, we talked about just like the daily persistence and the need to stay consistent. It's crucial. So
Keep
anything you
showing
got?
up. I
Keep
love
showing
that.
up. Embrace consistency over perfection. Kind of the same thing, right? Let go of the need to be perfect and instead focus on making consistent progress. If you miss a day or practice or make a mistake, don't let it derail you. Get back on track as soon as possible. So just getting over the perfection. Like, it doesn't have to be all or none. You don't have to work out for 2 hours. Like, it can be half an hour. It doesn't have to be something that's huge. It's going to make you super sore, but something that's small and something that checks the box and keeps you moving in the right direction. And yeah, I just think we set our ambitions a little too high at times. I think we try to do things that we used to be able to do, and we jump right back in a little too quickly. And I think it's just small progress over time. I think that's huge. Next is cultivating a growth mindset. So shifting from a fixed mindset, which is the belief that abilities are static, to a growth mindset, the belief that abilities can be developed with effort. Yeah, this just shows that you don't really see failures or setbacks as like roadblocks, but opportunities to grow. Right? We don't. People always say we don't lose, we learn. It's just finding ways to make those losses valuable and those failures something that serves you. Right? You're failing forward. You're always moving forward in that pursuit.
I love failure.
Set stretch goals that push you beyond your comfort zone. Identify an area of your life where you want to grow or improve, then set a goal that feels just out of reach. A stretch goal should challenge your abilities, but still be attainable with consistent effort. So we're talking about something that you think you can't even achieve yourself, right? But you think, right? It's that fine line, right? It's not something like I'm gonna fly, right? But it's something that you think you can possibly achieve, but maybe you have certain doubts. Number 6, surround yourself with gritty people. Find and build relationships with people who embody the qualities of grit. Those who are hardworking, passionate about their goals, and committed to their growth. These individuals can serve as both motivation and accountability partners. And I think this is huge, right? Accountability is huge. There's days when you don't want to do it. And if you have the right group of people, they bring you through. It's always like the back in 8th grade when you and Trevor always pulled me into the weight room, right? It's those that keep you accountable, those that maybe even at the time believe in you more than you see, think you're better than you even know, get you over that ledge. So I think surrounding yourself with people who are smarter with you, are smarter than you, are grittier than you, are doing things that you think are awesome, I think is really important. And then finally, practice self-compassion and emotional resilience. Be kind to yourself when things go wrong. Instead of harshly criticizing yourself for a failure, talk to yourself as you would a friend, offering encouragement and understanding. Um, Positive self-talk is huge. We talked about the contagious nature of positive energy, and I think you got to be gracious with yourself. Life is hard. Nobody's walking through your footsteps besides you, and nobody knows what you're going through. So I think it's important to stay positive and not be afraid to reach out, not be afraid to ask for help, but just always keep the light at the end of the tunnel. And we know how important faith is with that. Just looking at the big guy above, knowing that there's a greater purpose and a greater plan, and you don't have to keep it all inside. But yeah, those are the 7. Curious if you have any insights on those.
I had a couple, but I kind of forgot about them. Definitely with the perfection one. I think my first thought goes to diet and kind of that 90-10 rule. I think when people completely overhaul their diet and try to be perfect, usually works for a little bit, but then kind of falls off. So I think whatever it is, just giving yourself some grace, that little room for error and rewards, whatever that is. Food's a good example, but I think that's for anything. Just being really good 90% of the time, but giving yourself grace if you slip up or um, need to take a day off, whatever it is. Just keep showing up, focus on the 90%, but give yourself grace when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person, but like a huge overhaul is not always the answer, right? It's making the small decision. Oh, I'm gonna have like a healthier meal instead of a bad meal just this one time, whether that's breakfast, lunch, dinner. It's like the small steps over time that eventually you build that momentum, and then it becomes more of an overhaul and you see the progress. And because if you eat chicken, broccoli, and rice every meal, maybe you're going to be healthier, but nobody's going to sustain that. So yeah.
Are you gritty?
Gritty. I'd like to say I'm gritty.
Good. Then you can stay. Anything else?
That's all I got for
Good
notes.
stuff.
But yeah, I thought it was a good book. If you liked what we talked about, I highly encourage Grit by Angela Duckworth. If you like these book type reviews, I have a lot more coming up. So
Podcast every day.
yeah, I've been reading. You got any book recs at the moment?
Not at the moment. I'm kind of just more reading fiction now.
Oh.
I like to read before bed.
What are you
Just
reading?
as a way to turn the mind off. The Divergent series right now.
Emily wants me to read that. Yeah.
It's been a long time, but
You like
enjoying that. Yeah, it's good. Kind of want to read the Chronicles of Narnia next. It's been a long time as well for those.
Well, they're pretty big, aren't they?
Yeah. But I got a few nonfiction ones down I'll get into. Yeah. We'll see. I like to write down things people have recommended or things I want to check out. Definitely be reading Louis' book when that comes out. Excited for that. But yeah, I think Hormozy said this too. I think it's not about seeing how many books you can read. I think that's a goal for a lot of people, but I think it's like rereading something like 5 or 6 times or like once a year if it's a book that was impactful for you, and just remembering why it was impactful, just because we are forgetful. And so obviously taking notes helps a ton, but I think just being intentional and not just reading and not have any takeaways from it, but rereading if you need to, taking notes if you need to, and just thinking about what you read. I think that's a better way to grow, in my opinion. But yeah, I think, if you do decide to read that book, just not trying to apply everything, but hopefully 1 or 2 things that jump out at you that you can apply, and even hopefully from this conversation between us two, 1 or 2 things to think about and hopefully apply. I know just from kind of your takeaways, there's a few things I can think about more, and it's good to self-reflect and just making sure you're applying the things you learn about. So good chatting.
Mm-hmm.
All good?
All set.
Cool, man. Go be gritty, people. But that's all we got. Till next time. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave a rating, review, or tell a friend to check us out. Be sure to follow us at SHRP_training for more content to help you be your best self. Go be great today.